Well, good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome to tonight's stream. It is a super special one as we have another exciting IFL season to kick off. One more sleep to go, and then we are there. So it is with a great sense of thrill that I can officially say once again that it is Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. Even though today is a Friday, I'm not renaming this, not now. So, for those of you who are hopping on, thank you so much for tuning in, taking some time out of your night on a Friday to talk IFL football. For those of you who are new to the league or the forum or this channel, welcome aboard. My name is Alex Schuberth. I am a huge fan of the indoor and arena football game. It's a passion that I have channeled into my current role as lead IFL contributor for Sports Coast to Coast. What is Sports Coast to Coast, you ask? Well, it's a Pacific Northwest based sports forum site that specializes specifically in coverage of the Indoor Football League and its 14 member teams specifically. There you will find up to date schedules, rosters, previews, game recaps, and a wide variety of other analysis on the IFL game and the teams. So if you call yourself a fan of the IFL, Sports Coast to Coast is a must to get all of your information in one place that you need. This is now my 5th year on the forum, and this is the 4th year that I've put on this Wager Wednesday series. So we've got Monica in the chat. Welcome aboard, Monica. Thank you so much for hopping on. Constant supporter from the get-go, as always. So really appreciate you hopping on. So I've linked the forum down below in the description. It is there that you will find the written version of my post as well. So if you're more of the like to sit down and read type, there it is for you. I've linked that one directly in the description as well for all of your week one previewing needs. So with that being said, let's shift gears here, bring over our screen like so, and get down to the nitty gritty of tonight. So welcome aboard. We've survived the off season and now actually less than 24 hours away from kickoff. So let's get cracking here. So a lot of tonight is going to be introductory, refreshing, and a little bit of reflection on what has been in the indoor football betting landscape the past few seasons. So we've been waiting basically 7 months for this moment, and we're finally ready to break through and enjoy some IFL football. We're going to go into some of the history of Wager Wednesday, how it came to be, why it exists. We'll go through each of the terminologies that we're going to be using throughout the season so that when we do get to betting games, we'll all have a rock solid idea of what things are and how to look at things. We're going to go over how we did for the 2025 season with recapping last season in terms of our personal results as well as league-wide trends. And we'll see how everything stacks up within the entire population of games that we have to choose from. So we've got 3 full years of data to work with now. Pretty powerful and voluminous population at that. So we'll give that its due time as well. And then we'll get to what I'm assuming most of you came here for, which is predicting the pair of week 1 games set to kick off over the weekend. And we'll also establish some season-long goals along the way as well. I see Chris is hopping on here. Welcome in, Chris. Hope you're having a great Friday. Thanks for hopping on. So, Wager Wednesday, for those of you who are new, what is it? How does it work? Well, to answer that, I'll give a little bit of background on myself personally. I am a very, very mathematically driven, numbers-based person. Have been basically since I came out of the womb. So, huge fan of sports as well. And what we have here, it just represents a nice marriage of that passion for math and statistics and putting it to use here to preview and predict the outcome of these games. So I have a season model that I built basically from the ground up a few years ago, borrowing some metrics from some other pretty well-known models in both college and high school levels. And what we wind up having is a way that we can pretty much handicap games on our own and see where the differences lie between what we think versus what the odds makers think. So we'll see what those differences are. We'll see if those differences make sense. And perhaps the more important question, is there any value in some of the predictions that we're seeing? So we'll talk about all of that in great detail as the season moves along here. And really, we're going to evaluate ourselves in terms of performance in two ways. Most of it is going to be in terms of net gain or loss in terms of dollars, rather than win-loss record. Because at the end of the day, we could pick straight up winners, straight up losers, pretty straightforward. And we can win the majority of the time by relative win-loss record. But that probably is not going to tell the whole story. We want to challenge ourselves a little bit here. We want to kind of diversify our bet types and try to get a good sample so that once we get to the end of the season, we can say, all right, we have 15 of each different bet type that we've gone and invested in. So that's more or less kind of like how we're going to evaluate things. A lot is going to be very similar to what we did last year. So our primary method of determining win-loss is going to treat each game equally. A flat $10 unit per bet. To get more of a gauge on the effect of confidence on some wagers over others within the same week, each week is going to have one wager at the maximum unit that we put. So each week is going to result in a $20, what I call mortal mega max. This is a concept borrowed from popular personality on X, Trinatya. And to be clear, this is a mortal with a cross between the O. It is not a direct copy. Know the difference. But each one is... So each week is going to have that mortal mega bet, including this week. Since we only have 2 games, we're going to knock that down to $15. And throughout the season, we'll see, is that confidence something that can bring us a few extra bucks? Or does it ultimately put us a little further behind? We got Cody from In the Alley coming on. Thanks for tuning in, Mr. Codeman. New rule, just moneyline picks only. That would be pretty interesting. There's actually a really neat concept on that idea, by the way, that we'll get to in just a little bit once we explain a bit of the betting terminology. So stay tuned for that. Each week, we're going to be doing some 3-leg parlay attempts, basically choosing one outcome from 3 different games throughout the week and seeing if we can get all 3 right for an enhanced payout. The minimum total odds rule of plus 400 applies here, as it has the past few seasons. And like I said before, we want to try to get as even of a split on the different bet types as we can. So this isn't a guarantee that it's going to be exactly the same number of spread, money line, over-under bets across the whole season. But we just want a healthy sample of each one. To really get the most of once we evaluate things, once we're all said and done. And more importantly, to kind of wrap up this section, I will be tracking results and publicly posting them here all season long, both on these video sessions as well as in the written segments. So we're going to be holding ourselves accountable here, seeing what's going well, and what can improve as we venture deeper into 2026. So now we'll go over some betting definitions for a little bit. So if you've been with us for quite some time now, this is really just more of a refresher. Get up, grab something to eat or drink. But if you're new, this is a pretty important thing to kind of get your head around in terms of trying to figure out what's going on in the world of IFL sports betting. So the first bet type that we're going to be talking about is the spread. And all that the spread is it's a number that the odds makers determine that a team should beat their opponent by on average. So if you look at a Vegas minus 5.5 ticket, for example, the minus before the number indicates that that team is favored. So the way that we read this is, in order for a bet on Vegas like this to win, the Nighthawks would have to win by at least 6 points. If they lose the game, or they do win but by less than 6 points, your bet would lose. On the flip side, if you like the underdog in a given game, their point spread will be indicated by a plus before the number. And what that means is, if your underdog wins the game, or they keep the margin of defeat to less than that specified number, your bet would win. So whenever we take favorites, I'll usually say laying the points. And whenever we say take underdogs, we'll say that we'll be taking the points. Historically on DraftKings, each side of that bet carries odds of minus 110, which we'll get a little bit more into exactly how to calculate odds and payouts in a little while. But as a rough guide there to start, it would be, you'd need to risk $11 to win $10. That payout would be $21. Sometimes that number can deviate, as we'll see throughout this season. But minus 110 has been the standard. The over-under bet is a pretty interesting one. So this one, you're not necessarily concerned with who wins the game. All you care about is the number of points scored between those two teams. Add them up, compare them to the total, and figure out your result from there. So one example I put there, San Diego, Arizona. Let's say they have a game that's set at 87.5. If we have a 50-47 win by either team, I chose the Rattlers over San Diego in this case. That would be 97 points. Anybody who had the over 87.5 would win. If we got a scenario where, let's say, San Diego defeated Arizona 42-36, that's 78 points. That's below 87.5, which means that the under would win on that occasion. Do bear in mind for this type of bet that it does include overtime. So if you have an under ticket and you're staying under, but the game is tied past 60 minutes, you're not through the woods yet. So just a little bit something to bear in mind. The odds on the over-under remain identical in terms of construct to what the spreads were, where minus 110 is the standard. Although you could have one side minus 105 and the other side minus 115 on occasion as well. The money line bet is, as we've mentioned before, it's probably the simplest of the three bets to understand. This is just picking a winner, straight up. No crazy math required. Betting on favorites will usually result in a higher win percentage, but the odds are very, very abbreviated on those favored teams to win, which makes sense. But really the best bettors, not just in indoor football, but in pretty much any sport in general, they find the best value by picking those underdogs at exactly the right time. So that's something that we're going to try to do a little bit more, and with a little bit more success than we have the past couple years, which, as I said, we'll get to historic results and kind of look ahead in just a little bit. So you'll notice through our first couple examples that those spreads and those over-unders are usually, but not always, expressed in terms of half point. What exactly is that half point? Well, it's not a method of scoring in the indoor football league inherently. We still have whole numbers for scores, but that half point that's tacked on to whatever spread or total is there, that's called the hook. And all that does is it ensures that there's a winning and a losing side to each bet that has it. Um, every so often, you might see a spread or a total that's a whole number, and it then would be possible for a game to meet that number right on the nose. Which, if that's the case, the bet pushes, you get your money back, and it's a 2.5 to 3 hour exercise in futility. But that's really all that is. And now we can talk about odds a little bit more. So we mentioned minus 110, minus 115. Basically, what you're doing there is you're looking at that number, and if there is a minus in front of it, that represents the amount of money that you would need to risk in order to win $100. So if Quad City money line is minus 150, that means that you need to risk 150 to win 100, or $15 to win $10 if you're a $10 per unit player. Plus odds, on the other hand, represent the amount of money that you gain if you put $100 on the line. So $10 would win 13 on a plus 130 bet. $100 would win plus 230 on a bet with those same odds. So like I said, we're going to try to hunt down as many of those valuable plus odds payouts as we can to try to see if we can build our bankroll a little bit that way. So our results for 2025, very, very strong, all things considered. Out of the 3 years that we've been doing this, this has actually been our best, or 2025 was our best season in terms of win-loss record. It was actually the second best in terms of overall profitability, which our maiden voyage of 2023 still holds. The biggest boost to our prospects last year was far and away over-under betting, where we nailed 64% of our wagers, thanks largely to some pretty neat calculations that the model actually turned out in terms of what the expected number of total points would wind up being. As you can see, the money line was a little bit lacking. And for those who were on from the very beginning a season ago, you may remember full well my 0-7 streak to start the season in terms of betting favorites on the money line. So right from the jump, we had to climb out of that hole, which we did a little bit. But this year, hopefully we can set the tone a little bit stronger than that 0-7 start gave way to last year. But when all is said and done, this was still a fantastic result. And if we can get things to more or less stay the same on our other bet types, and we get that money line right back up to match the positive records of the other two, look out. The sky's the limit here for our 2026 record. So now let's look at how last year's results compared to what we ended up getting for the entire population. So from 2023 onwards, where does 2025 fit in all of this? Well, one thing that we can say all time, the underdogs have a pretty decisive advantage at covering the spread. In the 3 years of IFL betting, you're looking at underdogs winning 55% of the time. Although last year was a lot more evenly balanced out. In fact, favorites had that one game advantage over the underdogs. Over-unders have been a lot more even. And last year was actually the first season that the overs outperformed the unders, being better by 5 games. On average last season, including the playoffs, we had 87.5 points per IFL game, which was a slight, I want to say, anywhere between 0.6 to 0.8 of a point decrease from what we saw last season, or the prior season in 2024. But the one thing that I saw as a weird abnormality was that all but 20 of last year's games had totals set at or below that average. Um, just something weird that I observed. Not exactly sure 100% what that means from a historical standpoint, but just something to note. You would think that that number of games set at the average would be a little bit closer to that 59-60 range, like more in the middle. So there's definitely a pretty significant skew from last year's results on that front. And now, Cody, we'll get to your point on the money line, which favorites have won 66% of the games. So, in other words, every third game that we watch should result on average in an upset where the underdog actually outright wins and beats the favorite. Last season's result, pretty close to that historic total, just a clip above, maybe 0.3 of a percentage point higher. But based on the way that money line prices have been trending in the past year, 2 years, my assumption or conjecture, if you will, is that favorites would need to retain that rate of winning, probably even get to 67% in order for bettors to break even. So if maybe you're on the other side and you like underdogs, let's say we have a season where, let's say the underdogs win 40% of the time and you spend all season betting on the underdog outright. If underdogs can get you even that 40% win rate, you will be swimming in money. So the money line, as we've learned the past couple of years, we're going to have to play that very, very carefully and strike when the iron is hot. As the past couple of years have taught us, easier said than done, but we're going to do the best we can. So let's move away a little bit from the technicalities of betting and get to some rule changes that have been put in place for the on-field component of the season. So the ever increasingly popular drop kicks have been modified a little bit. So rather than being spotted at the 3-yard line as a typical extra point would be, drop kick would be moved back 5 yards. The defense has also been adjusted in terms of this rule so that they can rush one extra defender on top of the 4 that they are allowed for that formation. With the extra rusher coming from the fact that the offense now has an extra blocker in place of the holder that would typically be there. So we'll have to see what kind of effect that has on the success rate of drop kicks. And furthermore, if drop kicks are treated separately in terms of, let's say, quote unquote, class of extra point attempts. So that'll be something to look out for, particularly with some of the drop kick friendly kickers in the league. Ernesto Lacayo of San Diego and Axel Perez of Orlando being the first couple that come to mind. Another rule change for offenses, receivers in high motion perpendicular to the line of scrimmage can legally block a blitzing linebacker now above the waist. Prior to this season, contact was much more restrictive and could have been grounds for a reviewable play for a possible penalty. But because they spelled out that rule here, any play of that nature is no longer eligible for a review. Personal foul calls have been modified so that they are now 10-yard penalties rather than the customary 15 that we've seen in previous years, as well as what we see in the outdoor game. So roughing the passer, illegal hands to the face, things of that nature now carry a 10-yard infraction. Unsportsmanlike penalties will remain 15 yards with the added nugget of that player or players that get called for an unsportsmanlike call on their first offense. They must sit out the immediate following play. A team can call a timeout all they want, but that will not bring that player back until the following play. So it makes some interesting decisions if a quarterback, for example, kind of loses his head, maybe gets called for a taunt on a play. But yeah, something for teams to consider as they try to kind of clean that up a little bit, because we had some instances last year where the unsportsmanlike stuff could have gotten a little bit out of hand. Overtime has had some slight modifications to it, mostly involving frames that go beyond the first overtime. So this resembles a little bit more of what the college game currently offers. So if a game reaches a double overtime and a team scores a touchdown, they must go for two. Drop kicks are eligible for this. But yeah, we pretty much repeat that exercise until we get a winner. Third and subsequent overtimes essentially become a shootout from the opponent's 3-yard line. And the last one of note here, although there are many others to dive into in the rulebook, but the last one that we will highlight here is a clarification on illegal defense involving the linebacker. So the one who is set to blitz anyways. So in prior years, if that linebacker started to move forward, even a lean, at the time of the snap, it could have been called for illegal defense and a 5-yard penalty resulting from that. This season, the rule has been modified to say, okay, a linebacker can lean as long as the feet are stationary at the snap. And if that's the case and the timing is right, that'll not be called as a penalty. I imagine this one will be a little bit tougher to call and enforce, especially early on in the season. But yeah, it should be interesting to see how that affects calls on the defense. It instinctively would probably result in a decrease in those type of illegal defenses being called, but you never know. We're just gonna see how it plays out. So here is a look at our lifetime results so far. As you can see, in 2 of the 3 seasons, we have been profitable. That 2024 one, for those who remember, was a wild ride. We had to go on a crazy ending run, including the postseason, just to sniff break even. But overall, our results are overwhelmingly positive. We actually have 196 single game betting wins so far, which means that we could reach the 200 milestone by the time that we get to and clear week 2. Our 3-leg parlay rate has actually, believe it or not, been more successful than our single game bet rate, 58.2% there compared to 55.1% of our main plays. Unfortunately, it hasn't resulted in as many parlay wins as we would normally expect. But no time like the present to have a little bit of regression in the mean. We keep at it with the same mentality, same focus, same procedure. And all we can do is trust in the math to get us to where we want to be. So what are our goals for 2026? What kind of numbers do we want to see in terms of record and profitability and things like that in order to qualify 2026 as another successful season? Like I did with last year, I've set these at super aggressive numbers. So the first one, see if we can get a better ROI than what we have gotten so far. So improving upon that 5.54%. I did the math, crunched some numbers. That equates to basically a $66 net gain once we get through the whole season. Very, very tough ask, but if we make some right calls at the right time, certainly no reason why we can't meet that this year. For context, our first year, 2023, we had that near 13 unit plus when all was said and done. And that was with a smaller sample size, as a matter of fact. We talked a little bit about this in my reflective piece last season, but I would like to, with my sample of picks in each bet type, outperform what the population is. So favorites and underdogs on the spread, over and under on the total, and favorite and underdog on the money line. So last year we hit on both ends of the spread and both of the over-unders in terms of our goals, with that money line lagging behind a little bit. On a semi-related note, positive result in all three bet categories. In a perfect world, we'd like to see that green bar elevate higher than the red bar if we were to visualize our results that way. Again, that's spread, money line, and over-under to evaluate that. I'd like to win at least 4 of our parlays during the season. We should have 20 attempts to work with throughout the season. Last year, we actually hit 3 of our first 6 parlays, but didn't get another one after that, amidst a whole host of 2 for 3 efforts. So again, that kind of goes back to the whole regression to the mean idea, where we know how to pick these games. Now, can we just string 3 of those together within the same week? So 4 3-leg parlays, and lastly, at least 7 wins across all 14 teams in the IFL. So 9-7 in Orlando games, 12-4 in Quad City games. Trying to view it like that. I put more of an emphasis on this last season, and it proved to be a super powerful tool in terms of staying balanced in terms of analysis amongst the 14 teams in the league. In fact, I think the only team that I failed to get this on last season was San Diego. Aside from that, 13 of the 14, we got to at least 7 wins. With a late season surge from with each team having 3 games to go onwards, really proving powerful in terms of our great season-ending close, which was a 25-12 run last year. All right, before we get to our picks for the night, just want to throw out some disclaimers out there. The lines and odds that we're going to be using today are going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook, unless otherwise specified, though I will say I haven't found odds for the IFL anywhere else yet. I know they just came out today, but if somebody out there happens to know of another book that might be carrying it, please do let me know in the comments. Would love to look a little bit further into that. So perhaps more importantly, this exercise is mainly for fun and to better educate the audience in terms of the matchups upcoming. If we happen to get picks right and make a few bucks on the side, nice added bonus. But this isn't meant to be, for lack of a better term, betting advice, or as a way to basically make money. On a related note, if you do play along, please do so responsibly. 21 plus, legal jurisdiction, all of that good stuff. Practice safe gaming habits, including setting a budget on time and money. Risk only what you can afford to lose. And if your loved one is maybe having troubles with problem gaming, there's a lot of resources online and offered by each individual state that can really help out with getting you back on the straight and narrow. Haveagameplan.org is one example. Responsibleplay.org is another. Help is out there. Don't be shy if you feel like you're meandering off that path a little bit. We're here to support you. And with that being said, for the first time this season, let's get to our big board. I am so excited for this. So let us bring up DraftKings here. Refresh like so. Should come up momentarily here, and here we go. So our opening game, Saturday night, tomorrow night, it's in Fishers, Indiana. The Freight taking on the reigning Eastern regular season title holders, the Quad City Steamwheelers. And bookies really must love Quad City here. They've got the road team favored by 8.5. The over-under is 89.5. If you're looking to play the money line, Quad City is at minus 340, so a little bit lighter in terms of payout. But Fishers plus 270 on the money line. That's a near triple your money proposition if you think the Freight can outright win. In terms of what to look for in this game, there's going to be a lot of familiarity with how both teams are running it back this season. Several pieces from both offenses have been retained, including both starting quarterbacks. You have Daquan Neal in a second straight season in Quad City. You got Felix Harper set to call the shots for the Freight. And we've seen both guys play at super electric levels throughout their careers. Their support cast on both sides, absolutely terrific. Jared Ware Jr. at running back for Quad City, as well as Kevin Rudd, Jordan Vesey, and a new addition, former Iowa Barnstormer, Keon Williams, coming off a Triple Crown season, a rare achievement in really indoor football, but all of football as a whole, regardless of discipline. So you put that explosiveness onto this Quad City offense, and yeah, there's a lot to be excited about for Quad City. And the same can be said for Fishers. They brought back a lot of their offense that ended last season super strong. Dominic Roberto at running back, Isaiah Coulter and JJ Stokes at receiver. They bring in some championship experience to that receiving group as well, with the addition of CJ Wyndham from the Vegas Nighthawks. So there's a lot to like on that offensive side of the ball. And I feel like I've talked about it enough where you as the audience can probably figure out which direction I'm going to take with this. I've thought long and hard about this for quite a while this offseason, at least a month or two. But my lean back then is going to be the same pick that I make here. Give me the over at 89.5. I just love how contrarian this pick appears to be, especially when you look at it from the lens of it's an early season game, which in the past few years in the IFL have historically been very heavily under results. I took a look at the math a little bit. Weeks 1 and 2, the past 3 seasons have combined to go 17-8 to the under. So that's a 68% win rate for the under. So why the heck am I going with the over? Well, there's another streak that is intact heading into the start of this season that I absolutely love. And it revolves around Quad City. 7 consecutive games to the over to close out last season. Can we chase 8? And on a related note, both teams last year very strong to the over. I believe both had 11 overs apiece throughout the regular season. So these teams know how to light up the scoreboard. And with the offenses carrying a lot of continuity and making that an impact addition here and there, I really don't expect either team to miss a beat. So I like this as a high-flying game. It's going to be the debut of Yahoo Sports as well, who will be broadcasting a handful of these games moving forward. But yeah, I mean, can the defenses show out in this game? Absolutely. But I think this is as good a spot as it gets if you're going to go against the grain of that early season undertrend a little bit. So I'm going to lean here with the over. I think if one team gets to 50, I think we'll be all set here. Even a score of 49-43 or something like that still gets us across. So let's see if we can carry over some of the ridiculously high scoring we got from last year's playoffs. But my first pick, it's going to be the bold one. It's actually going to be my mortal mega max of the week. So we'll see if that allows us to set the tone in terms of that betting method. So Quad City Fishers over 89.5 to begin this season. Our second game and final game of opening weekend is going to be the defending champions Vegas Nighthawks and last year's runners-up, the Green Bay Blizzard. This game is going to go down Monday at 7. So PSA for those who have not yet heard, because of a winter storm expected in the Green Bay area over the weekend, this game, originally scheduled for Sunday, has been postponed. It gets pushed back a day. It's going to be Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific. With our matchup here, we get lines eerily similar to what we had in last August championship game. So by nomination, Vegas is the favorite on the road at 1.5. The over-under is 94.5. At the money line, both teams are an even minus 110, so laying a dime there. Hall of Fame game, despite the postponement, it promises to be spectacular. And if we get close to the quality of the game that we got last August, this is going to be phenomenal. So the Nighthawks, what exactly has changed from the team that won the IFL National Championship back last summer? A fair amount, but they've also had some players return from that team at some very key positions, highlighted by Jaden DeLaura at quarterback, set to begin his sophomore year in the circuit following last year's impressive first-year showing. Quentin Randolph, the franchise's all-time leading receiver, is also back. Oh, and the Nighthawks also bring in one of the all-IFL rookies last year, Josh Tomas, at that running back wide receiver combo. Tomas coming over from the now dormant Bay Area Panthers. So Vegas looking to run it back with a lot of the same supporting cast. They made some pretty solid additions on defense as well. Marquise Waters and Clifton Duck among the highlighted names, now sporting the Vegas gold, red, and black. So yeah, they're looking for another strong season, double-digit wins, and a fair shake at maybe bucking some of the wayward trend of recent history against defending champions. So we'll see what they're able to do. They'll begin things in Green Bay, which has had a whole host of changes. They ended up absorbing a lot of that 2025 Bay Area roster, including expected quarterback Liam Thompson, who will be charged with the difficult task of replacing 2025 MVP Max Myler. Also gone for the Blizzard, TJ Davis, now in the CFL with Winnipeg. Lowell Patron, free agent signing for the Jacksonville Sharks. So it's going to be a bit of a different looking receiver group than the record-setting one that Green Bay had last season. They'll be headlined by Trayvon Alexander, a familiar name to Sioux Falls fans. Drayshawn Hudson is now in Green Bay. And defensively, look for that defensive line to be a strength this season. They bring back Sean Mustin, Henry Allen. They get Tavon Grant, also from those Bay Area teams of the past. So it's going to be such a fun matchup. And my pick here is actually going to be another contrarian one. You will quickly learn with me that a lot of the picks that I do sometimes don't make any sense up front, but they have some pretty interesting stories to tell if given the opportunity to do so. So my pick for this game, believe it or not, Green Bay at plus 1.5. Why am I fading the defending national champions here? Well, one reason for me is you look at the past track record of results, you look at teams at home covering the spread. Green Bay has done it by and far better than any other team in the IFL. I looked and I think their all time home ATS record, including playoffs, 19-7-1. That's good for a 73% cover rate, which is, to put it simply, pretty ridiculous. It's one of those ones that you look at and you scream, how can I not take advantage of this? For context, the closest team that has had multiple seasons under their belt in terms of home cover rate is the Massachusetts, now Orlando Pirates, at only 60%. So that puts it a little bit into perspective as to why I think this pick is reasonably sensible. I know Vegas is going to be popular. They're probably going to get most of the money, as they rightfully should, as the defending champions. But in the same breath, this is 2026. This is a brand new season. It would not shock me if Green Bay were to win this game. Just because of that nature of each team has a fair shake. And yeah, it's another bold pick. We're going bold here to begin 2026. I really couldn't imagine it any other way. I just happen to see two trends here that I am absolutely moving forward with. So in the rematch of last year's IFL National Championship game, give me Green Bay to possibly either get their revenge or drop the game by 1 point. And I will take the plus 1.5 spread here instead of the money line. You never know when you're going to need that 1 point in this game. We had several bets last season decided by that half-point hook, so anytime you can get it, as long as it's not a steep premium on the price, makes total sense to take the point here. So that is the direction I'm going to go for that one. So usually this is the point in time where I make the 3-leg parlay, but instead I'm going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to highlight the fact that for the first time ever, DraftKings is allowing same game parlay and same game parlay plus plays on their offerings. So in the past, you could only do one selection from each game. But let's say, for sake of argument, that you wanted to look at a couple selections from this game. You're like, okay, I think Quad City is going to win, and I think the game is going to go under. You can combine those two plays, and it calculates out at a preset number for you. So if you like that combination right there, you can get that at plus 118. If you instead like the over on that game, it's a slightly better payout. So the trick to calculating these same game parlays is that the events are kind of interdependent on one another. So that's why if you do the math, this minus 340, this minus 110, on their own, they should give you the same payout factor. But because of the inherent nature of, it's more likely that this team wins if this number of points is reached. That helps explain why those payouts are slightly different, as we just saw. So there's that option there. And you can combine these across multiple games as well. So you could go Quad City money line over 89.5 here. And then you can take Vegas spread with, let's say, the under over here. So you can combine things that way. I might tap into this a little bit later on in the season. But I like to get a few games under our belt first before we decide whether or not to make it a part of our weekly sessions here. So that's the spiel I have on the same game parlays. That's more of an FYI thing. But before we wrap things up tonight, I guess I'll outline some secondary picks that I have on each of these games. So if I were to go with something different, what would that something different look like? In the Quad City Fishers game, I was absolutely floored by this plus 8.5. From a lot of the previews for the season that I've read about, that I've talked with other fans about, a lot of people have Fishers as a pretty solid bet to represent the Eastern Conference in the playoffs this year as one of the top four. And I've seen him ranked as high as number one in the conference as well. So it's a home team. You're getting 8.5. It just seems like too much, unless there's some sort of injury or roster change that we might not know about yet for Fishers. But yeah, anytime that you can get that plus 8.5 on a team, especially one with as high of upside as the Freight, I think it makes more sense than saying Quad City's going to win by nearly double digits. Particularly on the road. Winning on the road is not easy in really any sport, let alone indoor football. But that just seems like a lot. So Fishers plus 8.5 would be my play. And I'd go as far as to say Fishers could outright win. So if you really wanted to throw $10 on here, start the season with a bang, I think you could do much worse than Fishers at this number. It is a very, very solid value bet. I was this close to picking it for the segment, but I've had my mindset on the over in this game for quite some time now. So can't really back out of it now. And then for Monday's tilt, I do like the under as the preferred option on the total on this one. And what this one really boils down to for me is just so many holes to cover in terms of what Green Bay is attempting to replace on offense. With a team that has the championship caliber that Vegas does, those growing pains might be early and often in this one. So as long as you don't get any like crazy special teams, short fields, that sort of thing, 94.5, especially for a week one game, is super aggressive. Of course, both teams could score 50 plus and blow that logic completely out of the water, to be sure. But history tells us, regardless of who's playing, there might be a little bit of rust to knock off, especially for a team coming in with as new of basically a unit as you can get. Not very much carrying over from last season's team either. So if I were to deviate from Green Bay plus 1.5, I would lean towards taking the under. All righty. So only 2 games to work with here. They should be 2 very promising games. I should note that this Quad City Fishers game is going to be available for free on yahoosports.tv. And then this Vegas Green Bay game is going to be carried by a streaming service called Overnight. OVERNGHT. So there's no I. But that is a paid service. It is a either monthly or yearly subscription. But if you do the monthly one, supposedly there is a code that allows you to get 40% off on your first month. So that platform will carry the Vegas Green Bay contest once we get to Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. All righty, so that's good. We can keep things within an hour tonight. We'll wind down here in just a little bit. There we go. Bring me back front and center. So yeah, that's it. 2 games coming up this weekend to whet our appetite for the rest of the season to come. It's only going to get better from here, folks. So stick around. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And if luck serves us well, I'll see you at the cashier. Have a great night, everybody. Enjoy tomorrow's opener.